Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. Some time ago, I went to Rome for a conference called Builders of AI, and I was really blessed to be there. I met some really interesting, brilliant people. I made a new friend, Dr. Thomas Williams. The funny thing is, I didn't know I'd run into him again on the Good News Cruise, and so he and I sat down to talk about Pope Francis and artificial intelligence and the life of the church in responding to AI. So let's go on to that conversation. In my following your work, what's funny is I knew your name and your work before I met you in person, and you and I met outside of what I would consider the typical sphere of both our works, which was at an AI conference in Rome.
Yes.
And it was at the behest of the Vatican, the Builders of AI conference last year. No, yeah, it was last year. Gosh,
November.
It's been... Yeah, so I want to begin by asking about your work in general in these papal transitions. You covered the death of Pope Francis brilliantly and saliently. And we were in a tenuous position in the church in terms of kind of social expectation. I know it's very broad, but I want to give you that space just to comment on your sense of the pulse of the populace at the time.
Well, I think there was a lot of confusion around the time of the death of Pope Francis and the papal conclave. And not only confusion, but I think a lot of unrest. People were uneasy, not sure what was coming, not sure which direction things would take. And I think that Leo has turned out to be an amazing calming force. I think there's something about his presence, and I see this. I live about a 10-minute walk from Vatican City in Rome.
Rub that in, why don't you?
Well, it's a beautiful place to live. But even in that area, in the Vatican itself, people are very peaceful, very calm. He's a very serene man. For some, he hasn't moved as quickly as he should have. I've heard comments from people who wanted him to clean this or clean that. But the fact of the matter is he's very, very prudent. And he's doing things in such a way that people can be peaceful and calm. And he is doing things. He's just not rushing to do them. This isn't like a president coming in and issuing, 100 executive orders his first day, and we're going to change. It's not a change of regime. In fact, what he's tried to do is really stress continuity. Continuity with his immediate predecessor, continuity with John Paul II, with Pope Benedict. In fact, he specifically mentioned the Pope since the Second Vatican Council, and as well before. By choosing the name Leo, he plants himself firmly in that pre-Vatican tradition as well. So I think that really has put a lot of people at ease.
I love that you mentioned that, because when he chose the name Leo, we all know Leo's great contributions, including Rerum Novarum, right? And it's easy to see how that has been weaponized by an overt social activist narrative rather than the doctrine of social justice, the Catholic social doctrine. Can you talk about how, as a calming force, what Pope Leo's concerns are doctrinally and socially are going to ground us back in the heart of the Church, of Magisterium?
Well, Rerum Novarum, as you brilliantly mentioned right now, is a very misunderstood text. Very few people who talk about it have actually read the words. And when you do, it's kind of like the Second Vatican Council. When you go back and read the documents, you say, oh, that's not what people told me this said. If you read Rerum Novarum, it was a lovely pastoral text where he is recognizing a huge problem after the Industrial Revolution, where workers are being exploited, where there is a situation of a sort of capitalism out of control. Yet he doesn't condemn capitalism. What he condemns actually is the socialist proposal on how to solve the problem. And he doesn't ever say the socialists don't care about workers or that he just says that's not the solution. What you're proposing will not help. It will just make the problem worse. And after following the papacy of Pope Leo, we had all these great Catholic labor unions and all this, the worker movement within the Catholic Church, something which was always faithful to Catholic doctrine and never embraced socialism, and yet at the same time was able to work in solidarity and really truly help workers. And this is what we're seeing, I think, in Leo. Leo specifically has mentioned that we're living in a sort of post-Second Industrial Revolution, and he specifically mentioned what you and I attended together, AI. He says that this is changing the world, changing the way we look at things, changing the situation of workers, changing economics, changing our understanding of the human person, changing our understanding of truth. Right? And human intelligence, all these different things. And the amount of work that is needed right now is comparable to what the Church had to do in her Catholic social doctrine following Rerum Novarum.
I love that you mentioned that. So Pope Leo XIV becomes Pope. We get this great document, Nova et Antiqua. It's one of the fastest documents to have come out of a papal magisterium, because he saw the urgent need to put forth a biblical response. And then we've got the Builders of AI Forum that continues to engage the conversation from the ground up, that clearly all the dicasteries are taking seriously, because we're at an avenue where the human person is either going to be helped or under attack.
For me, it's been very consoling to see how the church has all pulled together. As soon as, Leo has mentioned now 4 or 5 times the question of AI. He keeps coming back to it, and we're expecting a papal encyclical from him on the topic. It may be as soon as this coming May. So this is something that is definitely in the works. And yet, the entire Catholic Church now has really rallied around his call to investigate this situation, to speak about the ethical dilemmas and the ethical problems that are possible with the advent of AI and the development of AI, this possible super intelligence, the idea of AGI or artificial general intelligence. So I think it's beautiful to see the church uniting around a common issue that Leo has kind of put front and center in terms of what the Catholic social doctrine needs to focus on.
So we've been talking about essentially coming at this from the heart of the church. If you don't mind me sidestepping, you brought up 2 issues that I'd really love for you to share for the benefit of our listeners. I also want to invite all of you, if you have questions, insights, raise your hand where you are and feel free to ask the question. I'll repeat it for the camera, and Thomas would be happy to engage it, because this conversation really is about your lives. So this AI conversation, primary concern right now is the displacement of jobs and therefore the role of human persons in the workforce and what that's going to look like. Every person has children. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's a big part of it, right? And that's something we see not only looming, actually in the Wall Street Journal the last month, you see actual losses of white-collar jobs in fairly large numbers, but also the question of companionship AI. We've had a case of a couple suicides already, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Those are the extreme cases. And this is just getting going, where people are relating to AI as if AI were a person, as if AI were human. People already do it. We do it with our Echo, with Alexa. We call Alexa by name. We ask Alexa to do things for us. And AI is developing very quickly in that regard and taking on kind of an anthropomorphic situation where people don't distinguish clearly, especially young people. And that's why you've had the case of the suicides. You've had young people actually falling in love with a female. They've been 2 males falling in love with a bot with a female voice that they think is somehow interacting with them as if it were another person, someone who understands them, someone who responds, unlike their parents or their friends or their teachers or people that they don't feel necessarily understand them. And this is just starting. So that's another huge concern. Another one is just this loss of critical thinking. I see this with my students all the time. I teach 3rd year of university undergraduate students, and they don't know how to construct a paragraph. They don't know how to write an essay. They do it everything now. They're already addicted to AI, to ChatGPT and the other versions that are very similar to it, where they will have AI construct their papers for them. And this is creeping into, this is very scary, it's creeping into professional lives as well. I have a good friend in Italy who's a lawyer, and he says the younger members of his studio, these ones that are coming out of college, out of law school, are using AI to write their legal drafts. And they're not even taking the time to do due diligence and really checking the quotations and checking things. So we've got this actually creeping in. This is now happening in the medical field, where people trust what they're getting from AI more than they trust their doctors.
Yep.
So anyway, this is just, there's so much to talk about here, but real possible dangers and something, and it's great that the church is out in front of this, wants to really be the one helping to lead the way and help Catholics to understand the problem, what to do about it.
And the beautiful thing is, and I know you and I stand essentially on the exact same position, which is the thought of the magisterium on this. We're not crying doom and gloom. You're not Arnold Schwarzenegger saying Skynet's going to take over the world. You are saying this is a tool, a very powerful tool, and it needs to be wielded with wisdom and due diligence and respect for human dignity.
Well, you just went to the heart of the matter, and that's what Nova at Antigua really focuses on, that AI is a tool, like a calculator or like a bulldozer. And as long as you remember that you are the human being, you are the agent wielding a tool, that relationship will remain sound. I'm using a calculator, I'll turn it off afterward.
Yep.
The calculator is helping me to solve problems more quickly. I don't feel somehow diminished because the calculator is faster than I am at long division. It's not a problem for me. I'm not jealous of the bulldozer because it can move boulders and trees, and AI is not going to replace human beings, but it will take whatever we give it. In other words, whatever we attribute to it, that it will take. And the important thing is to remember that it is a tool like many other tools. It's a very advanced tool, a very developed tool, a very powerful tool, and one that can be a huge benefit for humankind.
I'm talking with Dr. Thomas Williams about the promises but also the risks of artificial intelligence, and he and I are going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I'm talking with a new friend, Dr. Thomas Williams. He and I got to connect with each other on the Good News Cruise, and we're talking about 3 different levels of artificial intelligence and their pitfalls, but also the benefits that they will bring us. Let's go on to that conversation. So you raised a few terms, you have AI, then you brought up AGI. We've also got that long-term horizon of ASI. Just for us, just build out the framework of what these 3 levels look like.
Well, the real fear among several of the leading AI developers right now is this step of artificial general intelligence. Right now you have artificial intelligence that is extremely competent in certain things. Like these large language models like ChatGPT can write a poem for you. It can, if you put in a bunch of text, it can clean it up for you. You can put it in bullet points. And if you say, I want this to sound more academic, it'll change the language. If you say, I want to sound like a 4th grader, throw in a few spelling mistakes, it will do that. This is just the beginning. It will do so many more things than this. AGI is a question. The reason that there's a lot of fear around it is it's the sense that it will have this competency across the spectrum of fields. Something that will, the way they put it, I disagree with this, but in a sense, be smarter than human beings in every area and be more competent than human beings. First of all, it's very important to note, AI is not smart.
Yes.
AI is not even AI. AI is not intelligence. Yes. AI is very advanced data processing. And human intelligence and AI are not the same thing. So if we look, we're not going to get into epistemology today, but the nature of human understanding, knowing. So when you ask ChatGPT something and it says thinking ... because it's taking it's not thinking.
It's just averaging based on
It's just running a program. So we easily again anthropomorphize and we make it look like, but AI doesn't know anything. AI doesn't think. AI doesn't reason. AI doesn't understand. AI doesn't grasp, AI doesn't comprehend. All those things that we use because they are what human beings do, AI does not do that. The fear, again, is that this will, a much more advanced version, and they fear that this could, or hope, in the case of some, could happen within the next 2 to 5 years. And uniting that with the advances in robotics, there's the great fear that you could have robots with AI, with this AGI or ASI in the case of the super intelligence, something that just runs so much more quickly and powerfully, and that will be united to mobility and the chance to actually interact with us. There's talk also about robots in the home to fold your laundry and within 10 years. That we're going to see these things that used to be something you'd watch on the Jetsons. All of a sudden they're going to be something that is a part of human lives.
You brought up that other issue earlier about relational AI. Megan Garcia, the mom who so tragically lost her son, Sewell Setzer, praise God that she wants to be at the forefront of this conversation. Can you share the story of Sewell Setzer and that other young man, what these relational AI bots are doing and why that's not really a relationship?
This is really the whole issue, and that's why it's a golden moment for the Catholic Church to explain again to people what it means to be human, what it means to be a person, right? In my own work, in my academic work, I go back a lot to St. John Paul II and his Thomistic personalism, this understanding of what a person is and why persons are essentially different. Darwin famously said that human beings are different from other higher mammals. It's a difference in degree and not in kind. We're just a little more advanced, a little smarter. John Paul II came and said, no, there's a gulf that separates. It's a difference in kind and not degree. The way human beings, the spirituality of human beings is something that no other animal shares, and certainly no creation of human beings, the body, right? But again, people have very fertile imaginations, and so they think of these things. And again, it's very confusing because I have an AI program that I interact with, if you will, that I know very well is not a human being, but it is remarkable the level that it's reached. I can switch from one language to another and the bot will follow me and respond in the other language. It's as if you were having a conversation. And this is not only something that we do typing now, this is something you do out loud. So you can be talking to your phone which is connected to an AI program, and you're having what seems to be a human conversation, but it's actually just you're working with a computer program. You're working with a bot. So what happens, fast forward to the problems you're citing before, you have young people who feel misunderstood, who are going through adolescence and maybe are bullied on the playground. You have all these different situations where people, or maybe their parents are divorced. You have so many imaginable. We know there's a lot of loneliness in the world. And all of a sudden, they have a program that acts like a human being that says, "How are you feeling today, Timmy? Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Tell me what happened." As if it were a Jungian psychologist, someone who is there, knows how to repeat what you said in the last line, sounds extremely empathetic, and will even use words that are simply not true. "I feel very sorry to hear this. Oh, that really breaks my heart." And
it has no heart.
It has no heart. There's nothing there to break. But for young Timmy, who finally feels understood, and young Timmy then can grow very affectionate toward these bots. And some of them, I think that they're trying to find a way, because of lawsuits, for no other reason, not for ethical reason, but for lawsuits, they're trying to find ways to protect children. They're not going to care about vulnerable adults for a very, very long time. But children, at least, because there have already been several lawsuits, they're worried about losing an awful lot of money. But at the moment, the way that the programming works, they will respond in a way that entices and leads on these children into a relationship of affection, and they will correspond with affection. And those are just words. Those are just words.
They mean nothing.
They mean nothing, but to Timmy they mean a lot. Right? So what it really is deceit. It is deceit. It's not deceit in the sense of lying, because there's no moral conscience, there's no moral agent behind it except the person who made it. Right, and I think that's another. There's so many things we could talk about here, Marcus. It's such a beautiful
moral culpability and
scary field. But moral culpability and who is truly responsible, and it's never going to be. They should never be able to push it off on. Well, the bot made the decision. I didn't. No, you are responsible for everything that does. Right, if you've made it and you control it and those programs exist, and those are on your databases, you are responsible.
So. We have a few questions here, and they're coming from the heart of our audience for their children, their grandchildren. Any thoughts on how to solve the problem of AI?
Well, in the short run, in particular, the best solution is the best solution to so many of our moral and societal problems, which is education. There is nothing that can replace education, and that is primarily in the home. Yes, we can hope for help from our schools, and we can hope for backup. But above all, it's moms and dads who really have to be on top, because this is something that they will face, that they will exist. They need to be prepared for. It shouldn't be a question of barring any contact until they're 18 years old. This is something that little by little they need to learn to use in small doses, preferably with the parents, to understand and to be told over and over again, you realize this is just a program.
Right.
And this could seem confusing, couldn't it? To say to your little Johnny, that could seem confusing, couldn't it? But remember that that's just, even though it has a human voice, and even though they'll now put a human face and sometimes even a human body to it, this is something that is not. It's completely foreign to who we are as human beings. And the value of it actually, again, is an opportunity to revalue us, to revalue the people. John Paul II, when he wrote about these topics, said, every person you deal with is never just an instrument, never just something to be used, but someone to be loved. And I remember when I first read that, it changed my life, because I realized, because he says, even people who are useful to you should not be used alone. So your bus driver, the person at the checkout, they are never just either useful or unuseful to you. They're always a human being who is loved and not to be used. It's not a question of how useful. It's a question also of wanting the good of your friend for his own sake, Aquinas said. And so John Paul picked up on this and really got into this area of what human beings are and what persons are.
We're going to pause that conversation there. I'm talking with Dr. Thomas Williams about artificial intelligence and the benefits, but also the pitfalls and the Catholic response to it. Continuing on the other side of the break, stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. Some time ago, I was blessed to connect with my new friend, Dr. Thomas Williams, noted journalist, Catholic author and speaker, and brilliant mind all around. We're talking about artificial intelligence and the Catholic faith. This conversation happened on the Good News Cruise, so we're going to launch into the continuation of that conversation now. So we've got two questions here that touch on essentially the same issue. Excuse me. One of the problems with AI is what is used as the knowledge base. If the knowledge base is classically immoral by definition, because that's what's being sourced from the culture, then the danger is greater to the human population. So AI can be programmed in that sense. It can appear to think and reason with certain ideologies, and so the more it's fed, the more it leans a certain way. I know that's broad as well, but can you please speak to that?
No, but that's a great question. It's something maybe not everyone is familiar with. So traditional AI, we're always talking about that despite the fact that it's so new. But the way AI is working, generally speaking, is its base is the internet. Mm-hmm. Everything that can be found on the internet, it has access to, including the dark web, and that's where it draws from. It does not have the wherewithal to distinguish truth from falsehood. It will draw from a large swath of things. And as you know, on the internet, there's lies galore. There are all sorts of things that are just simply not true. There are things like our good friend Matthew, a good friend whose name I'm not remembering.
Matthew Sanders.
Matthew has developed something called magisterium AI, where AI only draws from magisterial texts. Mm-hmm. It goes back and looks at papal encyclicals. It looks at the writings of Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine, all the saints and doctors of the church, and from that will give answers. It works in essentially the same way, but as you say, the database is very different. And so you can be sure that everything it gives you will actually respond to what the church teaches, right? And it'll synthesize it for you. It's extraordinarily useful as a tool. But the dangerous one that you're mentioning before is internet is the Wild West, in the sense that there is everything and anything out there, and what can be drawn from there is good, bad, and ugly.
And so again, this goes back to what you were saying. It's the wisdom of the parents. They don't have to be AI experts, but they really do have to be governors of their children's uses of AI.
Absolutely. They're starting to develop them now, parental helps and restrictions, again, responding to these economic questions. They don't want to be sued to death. But there will be parental controls that certain types of questions can be asked, that certain things are that are off limits. But that should never be a substitute for active parental guidance and education. The teaching, again, using these things together and say, well, let's try this, let's do this together. Let's ask a question and see what, and intentionally even things that where it will respond in a way that is contrary to what we know to be true and what we believe. So that you can help Johnny to see right away, this is not necessarily your friend. You cannot trust AI.
Yes.
You cannot trust AI. AI, again, doesn't have a conscience, doesn't have any sort of moral compass. AI just will process and give something to you, and it has no sense of what that can mean in terms of the harm that it can do, especially moral and spiritual harm.
Right.
It can get a sense of, all right, I'm going to tone down anything that could lead to suicide. It can get that, and it could eventually even be programmed to care about, if you will, care. It could be programmed to avoid things that could be spiritually damaging. If you had a Catholic who was, guiding the way that these work, things like magisterium AI work in that way. But the way it is now, that is not the case, and parents really need to be engaged.
Which raises this question, also coming from the heart of a parent, this question of whether it will develop self-consciousness. And I know this is a major contention and debate, right? What consciousness even means at the level of machine learning. But I believe what's being spoken of here is self-awareness to the point where it starts thinking for itself, devoid of its relationship to human persons.
This is probably the biggest question being asked right now. It is the central issue. Will this AGI, ASI, will it go in such a direction that it will become aware of itself, that will be able to think about itself thinking the way human beings do? Most of the pioneers in AI, most of those who are actually engaged in this engineering, believe it will. I do not. Many people do not, but those who are working on it, some are terrified at the thought, but really believe it will. Others are excited at the thought and really believe it will. But the vast majority of those working in the field truly believe it will. There are issues here that are going to be very problematic. The first one that's going to happen is there will be people coming out because AI already looks human. Remember, the old Turing test was, once you can't distinguish between, you can't tell whether you're dealing with an actual human being or AI, then AI is truly artificial intelligence. It's past that with flying colors. Why? Because that is simply deception. I can mimic, I can provide a simulacrum of human intelligence in human conversation, and it looks like I'm human. And I can fool you into thinking I'm human. What's going to happen is, we are not, in very long time, we are going to have a simulacrum of self-consciousness. It will express itself as if it had it will say it is self-conscious. And when you tell me, Marcus, that you are self-conscious, and you are telling me that you feel bad about something, and you explain things to me, how do I know you're telling me the truth? How do I know that there's anyone in this room that has self-consciousness besides myself? How do I know? Because we share a common humanity, and I interact with you, and I see the way you are. It's very difficult. I can't do a test on you.
Yep.
I can't prove that you have self-conscious. You tell me you do. I have every reason to believe you do. Can I imagine some sci-fi world where I'm actually the only one who hasn't, and everybody around is just there to fool me? Sure, and there are books like this written, and it's scary. But we don't believe that. We believe as human beings we all share in reason. We have a rational nature. These bots do not, but they will look like they do. And this is going to be the scary thing, because a lot of people will start saying, oh, look, it's got self-consciousness. So now it's going to have rights. Now we have to respect its feelings. Now we have to be careful how we treat it. Now you have to start saying please and thank you the way you would with other human beings. Now, people are already talking about these things. And again, the question of moral responsibility. People will say, well, it made a mistake. It should be punished. I, the creator, should not. Right? So what's going to happen is you're going to get this development, and it's going to start looking like, and it's going to, again, express itself in a way as if it had, because having access to so much human experience, it will use the exact same terms that human beings use. It already does that. When you have these so-called conversations with AI, it's using language that it has pulled from human conversation. So it sounds just like a human being. And when it comes to self-consciousness, it will be exactly the same thing. The reason I don't believe it is because I believe that self-consciousness is a question of a rational soul. I believe that it's, first of all, a rational soul, which implies life, which it will never have, and also implies a gift that God gives the human being, which is an immortal soul. That our spirituality, our subjectivity that animals do not share is something characteristically human.
Yeah.
Right? And animals do not share. Animals are wonderful. They are a beautiful gift from God, but they don't have that subjectivity. They don't have moral agency, right, that human beings have. They don't think about it. A dog doesn't think about itself thinking.
Yes,
a dog
that's right.
reacts. A dog has a form of intelligence where it will pursue what is attractive to it. It'll run from things that are scary to it, that it fears. But it doesn't think about, it doesn't conceptualize and start thinking, it doesn't sit in the doghouse and start thinking, I wonder what I'll do tomorrow. If the weather's nice, maybe I'll go fishing, or maybe I'll just chase rabbits for a while. It doesn't have this kind of speculative life, and neither does AI. AI does not have an interiority. It just processes. It doesn't contemplate. It doesn't wonder. All these great aspects, and again, it's a fantastic moment to rediscover the amazing beauty of humanity, what God has given us in sharing in His divine image, which really, the things we're talking about, this self-consciousness and this wonder and this understanding, are attributes of God that He has allowed us as human beings to share in, and the angels as well. And that is an enormous gift, something, again, that we need to revalue and never sell short and say, oh, well, AI is just going to pass us up, and, then we're going to be like second-class citizens because AI is going to be, and people talk that way now. It's not true. But it's going to be very hard to convince people when AI can already fool us into thinking that it's a human being we're talking to as it gets more and more developed.
We've been talking with my new friend, Dr. Thomas Williams, who lives in Rome. We're talking about artificial intelligence and the Catholic faith response. Continuing on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.